I think that probably the best approach to the Thanksgiving holiday, when atypical groupings of family and friends gather, is to keep your sense of humor. Pretend you're an anthropologist at the table, taking mental notes on how the tribe is behaving. And the next thing you'll need is a stomach for historical revisionism. I mean, honestly, if any of the pilgrims returned to America today, they would be stunned by what we think actually happened on that first Thanksgiving 391 years ago. Ever since Abraham Lincoln declared Thanksgiving a national holiday in 1863, we have treated it as a secular occasion with a narrow culinary tradition. Regardless if the turkey we serve is dry or moist, cooked or barbecued, organically fed or tortured on farms, basted or not, brine-soaked or not, we fantasize about honoring this great American tradition from yesteryear. While in our deluxe contemporary kitchens, we remain convinced that we're following in the footsteps of those rugged pilgrims who came to Plymouth in peace, sat down with the Indians as equals, and indulged in the New World cornucopia with gusto. You might call this comfort food for a comfort myth. The Indian and the Pilgrim did not share the same palate. Charles Woodmason, a minister from that era, referred to the food provided by Indians as exceedingly filthy and most execrable. I'm just quoting. Thanksgiving celebrations were observed irregularly and viewed as strict religious events. It was actually a day meant for fasting. Probably most of us wish we had fasted on Thanksgiving instead of eating as though it were our last meal. We help ourselves to endless desserts as though the pie crust would become extinct the next day. A good definition of an optimist is one who begins his diet on Thanksgiving. Sarah Josepha Hale, considered the Martha Stewart of her day in the mid-1800s and chiefly responsible for influencing Lincoln to make Thanksgiving a holiday, implored American families to, and I quote, sit down together at the feast of fat things and raise a toast to the Thanksgiving holiday. Well, this is really more in keeping with what the holiday has come to mean today. We sit down together with family and friends and feast of fat things with a reverent tip of the hat to our pilgrim forebears. And the menu Sarah Josepha Hale proposed called for familiar American foods which in the mid-19th century were plentiful. Turkey, squash, cranberries, corn, sweet potatoes, and then make some apple pie. A good spin on Thanksgiving is that we give thanks for life's blessings, as did the pilgrims of Plymouth Rock. But that's pretty much where the commonality ends. And we can only assume that the pilgrims were grateful after that first brutally harsh winter. Now, that harsh winter had nothing to do with climate change. It's just coming to terms with New England winters. I tell you from experience, they can certainly build character. I think Sarah Josepha Hale's biography is in want of some research, which I really want to get into one of these years. What I find so intriguing about her is that she had 5 children and was widowed early. And she wore black every day for her entire life. And yet, she inspired the celebration of Thanksgiving. Thanks to her effort, we take great pains to travel even thousands of miles to sit down with kin at the Feast of Fat Things. The war stories that follow, the meltdowns, the guilt trips, make most people believe that seeing family once a year is probably too often. Therapists make a small fortune when people return to their respective homes after Thanksgiving. But researchers in psychosocial behavior are stumbling upon some great news in their findings. We now know, scientifically, that gratitude makes people less likely to turn aggressive when provoked, which helps explain why so many in-laws and ex-spouses survive Thanksgiving without serious injury. Gratitude, which was once believed to be good for the soul, now offers benefits for the whole body. Fostering an attitude of gratitude has been linked to better health, sounder sleep, less anxiety and depression, higher long-term satisfaction with life, and kinder behavior towards others, including romantic partners. If you want to sleep more soundly, one researcher advises, count blessings, not sheep. Researchers warn not to confuse gratitude with indebtedness, a very good point, also worthy of a more in-depth future consideration. In short, indebtedness or returning a favor produces a more negative feeling and doesn't yield the same benefits as gratitude, which inclines you to be nice to anyone, not just the benefactor. My favorite piece of research concludes that if you're bracing for insults next Thursday when you gather with family and friends, don't counterattack. With gratitude, your empathy will only be enhanced. So, like Jesus, you're encouraged to turn the other cheek when your crazy sister-in-law attacks you or a drunk uncle unleashes a lot of profanity while distorting family memories. So gratitude can inspire passive resistance, which is encouraged by social researchers as preferable to combat. And I figured, God, if only Jesus had that kind of research to back him up, we would have been much further along. Now, on the surface, Thanksgiving appears to be a wonderful holiday, with feelings of gratitude stirring the soul, an outpouring of generosity follows. Our mental ledger, where we mark debits and credits, or in this case, tracking blessings received and what we should offer back in return, triggers a societal outpouring of good deeds to those who have far less than we do. For one day a year, or let's actually be kinder, for a short season, we acknowledge that life isn't always fair and that the playing field is a bit tilted. And yet this warm, fuzzy feeling is tempered mightily by a word that has entered our thinking and become part of our vocabulary. We in fact heard it in our reading this morning, something that makes our generosity conditional. The word that keeps creeping into our language in unsuspecting ways is the word deserve.